of the trees regarding our gender identity and sexuality. When there's no place like home, empty air, an empty establishment. Friends with Dorothy, fighting for your civil rights, out on the cruel streets tonight.
My guest this week is Maeve DeLargy, and Maeve is with Equality for Children, amongst others. So, Maeve, welcome to Dublin City FM and welcome to LGBTQ+life.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Maeve, you made a sensational appearance at this year's Dublin Pride, but that's not the first time I encountered Maeve DeLargy, because you also were there outside Leinster House last year when I think it was Social Democrats Senator Jennifer Whitmore launched a report about a subject that I know is certainly dear to your heart, and that was eliminating the equalities of couples who have had either assisted reproduction or surrogacy. So, first of all, just tell people what you told us at Pride, because it was a very impassionate and a very personal address, I found. So tell us just a little bit about your background and how you and your partner find yourself in this situation.
Good. Yeah. No, it certainly is personal, and it's something I'm very passionate about, along with all the other campaigners in Equality for Children. We work very closely with LGBT Ireland and Irish gay dads, and the speech at the Pride main stage was with Pádraig Rice from LGBT Ireland and Irish gay dads, who kind of put forward the surrogacy point. So there's two issues here that are both very live at the moment. One that I suppose is personal to me, and I'll start with that. And then one is our campaign partners, and it's for the LGBT community as well as others. So the first is same-sex female parents. That's me. Me and my wife got married at the end of 2019, and we were very lucky. Thank you. Thanks to Ireland for the yes vote, allowing that to happen. And we were very lucky that a friend of ours agreed to be our donor, because we were really keen to have children, and it was a huge goal of ours and something we really thought about and planned. And he made that happen by agreeing to be a sperm donor for us. And we went ahead and had our first child, and have gone on to have two more. So we're really it's all going so well for us, and we're so delighted. But the problem is legal. It's because we have used a known donor and we did not go through a fertility clinic that brings us outside of the law. So there was great progress made in this area in 2020, which was delayed in itself, but it was the full commencement of the 2015 Children and Family Relationships Act 2015, and that allowed some same-sex female couples to both have their names on the birth certificates of their children, which was huge. It reflects the reality of their families, and such an important step. But there are still people left out, and that is why Equality for Children and other campaigners are still working on this issue. And the other issue, which Mick, you alluded to there, is the surrogacy point, which obviously affects all gay dads, but also single people, couples with fertility issues, couples with medical issues. That means they can't get pregnant or carry a pregnancy to term. And so they're forming their families through surrogacy. And that, as you say, Mick, that was a year ago that we heard there was the publication of the report of an intergovernmental working group on international surrogacy. It was chaired by Jennifer Whitmore. They did a great job. They really looked into this issue in detail. They brought in experts, legal experts, people who had children through surrogacy, surrogates themselves. They really heard from everyone, and they produced a report with recommendations a year ago, saying that all children, no matter how they were brought into this world, no matter how they were conceived, whether it be through surrogacy or as we say, through assisted donor conception, they all deserve equal rights, and they don't have that at the moment.
So if I recall correctly, Maeve, you indicated at the Pride community addresses that you had your children, or your children were born in Belfast, or at least some of them. Why was that? Was it not feasible or not possible for them to be born here? I don't want to get too personal about it, but was that relevant, or was that the way it had to be?
Very well remembered. That was our workaround. So us as LGBT people are all so used to finding workarounds for the law. If we're not included, we will find a way to make things work. And children is such a big thing in people's lives that they want children, they're going to make it happen. And for us, the law in the UK and Northern Ireland is different to here. And it says that if you're in a married couple, no matter how you conceive your child, you are the parents of that child. Both of you can go on the birth certificate. And so we wanted a birth certificate with both our names on it. We are the parents. And so that document, we wanted that to reflect our family. And so that's why we made a difficult decision to kind of move ourselves basically to Belfast. We stayed up there, for weeks before the baby came, for some time after the baby came. I changed our medical care to the team up there in the Royal Hospital in Belfast. They were very accommodating and we got great care. But that's not ideal. You don't want to be packing up. It was, for our first child, it was in the middle of COVID. We had all of that and messing throwing into the mix. And you're away from family, you're away from friends, you're away from your normal support. It did get us the document, so for us it was worthwhile, and we've done the same for our future children. But it's a Northern Irish birth cert that isn't recognised here. It doesn't translate into me having parental rights and me being recognised as the parent of the children that my wife gave birth to. And the converse, the daughter that I gave birth to, my wife is not the legal parent. So we're seen as single parents in Ireland, even though we're a married couple. It's pretty crazy.
So on that, shall we say, surrealist interpretation, does that mean that you're legal in Newry but illegal in Dundalk?
That is exactly right. And the current legislation says that if you go, tick all the boxes that they're asking for, you go through a clinic, you use a donor which is recognized or identifiable. So it's really important for the children to have access to their biological identity, and we completely agree with that. You have to, as I said, go through a clinic. That clinic has to be in Ireland, and you have to give birth in Ireland. So if you go up for a shopping trip and you're in your late pregnancy and you happen to give birth in Northern Ireland, all your good work and all your following, the prescribed way is out the window because you didn't give birth in Ireland. It's a crazy system where we have two jurisdictions on this island.
Yeah, that seems to me as much, and I don't want to buy into this too much, that they're trying to turn what is essentially a trade issue into a moral issue. Because my background is economics, that's the focus I always put on everything. But just to give you an example, I had a couple on 2 years ago, and they had a similar situation. Two women. They went to a clinic in Spain. Lo and behold, they come back, no recognition. However, if you bought a car in Spain and brought it back here, you could register it. It's crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy. And it's crazy because these things cost money. Going through a fertility clinic costs money. It's invasive. It's a medical procedure. Some people don't need it. So for that reason, there's no need to be medicalized when it's not necessary. But it's also a huge cost. And so we're excluding people from this opportunity to have a family. Now, we do have news, obviously, really recently about IVF funding, and I'll come back to that. But there's a massive difference between the cost of fertility treatment in Ireland and abroad. And you, as any couple or any person, should be able to choose where you get your medical care. And if you want to get it in, if you happen to be living in Spain at the time, or if you want to travel to Spain or Portugal or anywhere else to use a fertility clinic there, you should be entitled to do that. You should have the freedom to choose where you get your treatment and come back and have the same rights as here.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you 100% on that one. Now, something that cropped up, and I'm going to just broaden the discussion slightly, Maeve. 2 years ago, when Putin invaded the Ukraine. Now, we know a number of Irish couples have gone to the Ukraine. They've engaged in surrogacy, and this isn't all gay people. This is a lot of cases where people cannot have children. Mm-hmm. The report I saw at the time, and it was a very human story. Ukraine got invaded. The person who had been the surrogate, but had handed over the child willingly 2 years earlier, suddenly became a refugee. She came to Ireland. She became the maternal. She got the maternal rights, not the person who had, shall we say, contracted the surrogacy. Is that a true situation? Because that's my understanding of how the Irish law is interpreted.
Exactly how the Irish law is interpreted. You're completely right. So the perception is that the person who gives birth is the mother. It doesn't matter, who gave the genetic material for that. It could have been an embryo created by a couple and an agreement, entered into with a surrogate, fully informed. Everybody knows what they're doing. It's there's legal advice on all sides, and there can be counselling and everything. So everyone's really clear on what's happening. It's also the genetic child of the couple. And but Ireland still sees whoever gave birth to that person is the mother. And it means that's what happened when that woman came over here from Ukraine. She, under Irish law, she was now the mother. That also happens with domestic surrogacy, where sisters can be a surrogate, or friends can be a surrogate for someone. They don't want to be the mother. That was never the plan. But Irish law insists that because you gave birth, you were the mother, and it disregards any sort of agreement between the couple parties.
I don't want to go down the path of immaculate conceptions, but the mind boggles on that one, doesn't it? No, there's really a kind of it's a real big problem. It's a wider problem than the kind of more immediate ones we're trying to face. But birth certificates, don't really serve any purpose, in the sense that they're not true to, what are they trying to tell us? Who's parenting the child? No, because the parents, I'm the parent. I've always parented my children from the day they were born. I'm not recognized on the birth certificate. It's not looking at parentage. It's not looking at biology, because there's a presumption in Irish law that the husband, of the woman that gives birth is a father, and that may not be true. So it's not an accurate reflection of biology either. Mm-hmm. Well, I give you a personal situation, because it also does not reflect the reality of modern Ireland or the modern world. I acquired a child when she was about 8. I'm not the biological father. I have no right to that. I've also got no right to the mother's estate, because anything that might have happened in the meantime. So it does actually apply to, shall we say, people in civil partnerships. It applies to people in de facto relationships. There's a lot of anomalies and a lot of reform that needs to be brought into that area. And yours happens to be at the forefront of it, Maeve.
That's it. Yes, yeah, we're definitely looking into this, and with legal advice from Claire O'Connell, who's on our team and has been drafting laws all over the place and putting together policy papers. She knows this area inside out, and it's really by delving into this issue in terms of same-sex female couples and surrogacy for LGBT and Irish gay dads, it's really throwing up a lot of problems with the whole system.
Yeah, it also potentially, and I don't want to dwell on this one, it also leaves people like yourself, or like people who have been had the child born through surrogacy, open to blackmail, extortion, a whole range of things if the person they engaged, which perhaps a lot of the time they didn't know, particularly with surrogacy, that leaves them very vulnerable in a way that they should not be. Would you agree with that?
I do know that there can be problems in couples. So a relationship may have broken down, but the person who has no rights in that couple needs to stay in the relationship, because otherwise they don't have any legal tie. In Irish law, they're a legal stranger to the child. So if they kind of carry through or go on with the relationship breakdown and follow that to its logical conclusion, they could be completely shut out of their child's life. And so I do know that it can be used as a tool in that way.
Let's go back to where we came in. You and I, last year, we were outside Leinster House the day that the Jennifer Whitmore report was brought out. It was very well attended. It was a very positive day. It was a nice warm day as well, which I recall. People were very, very optimistic. That's over 12 months ago. I've since done interviews with Gay Dads, the group. What's the delay? Because I can't at that stage, we would not have believed we would be still talking about this issue in 12 months' time. But yet, we would hope we won't be still speaking about it in another 12 months' time. So what's the hold up in your estimation, Maeve?
There have been a lot of promises in this campaign. We can see from the 2015 Act how long that got to be commenced, and there are still problems with that. And this is a complex area, and it really needs to be done right. So we've had lots of reports at this stage, and we just don't have any drafting. We have a policy paper from the government, which, to be honest, is very concerning because it's going to exclude essentially 100% of LGBT couples, because the policy paper is saying is that no commercial surrogacy will be allowed, and the countries that are most commonly used by Irish gay dads to form their family are the UK, America, and Canada. And in America, 100% of surrogacies are commercial surrogacies. The surrogate is compensated for her time and her effort, as are the fertility clinics are paid, the legal people are paid. It's a huge cost, but people are paid in that thing, including the surrogate. And the government are saying that's not going to be allowed, which essentially means that, even if jurisdictions such as states within the UK or the US are green listed, it won't actually be a practical reality to go there because the only thing on offer there is commercial surrogacy. And so the whole of the US will be off the table really as an option for surrogacy. And so we need to be really sure that when we're legislating for international surrogacy, which is a positive step forward, we need to make sure it's equality proofed and that it is actually going to allow for international surrogacy rather than just saying we've done it, but it actually being practically impossible to engage in surrogacy.
Yeah. Again, you may not be able to answer this, but what's their logic on that? It's almost like equating, dare I say it, sex within marriage with prostitution. It's a bizarre. I can't get my head around the concept of it because clearly people need to be compensated. And I'm not saying that needs to be a salary. You can call it expenses, call it gratuity, anything you like. That to me does not constitute commerce. So what have they said to you that's the rationale behind this?
And I think it's a fear of child trafficking and a fear of exploitation of surrogates, all of which are things that nobody wants to happen. Nobody enters into surrogacy agreements, they don't want that to be, they don't want that to happen to anyone, and they certainly don't want it to be part of their child's story. They want to be able to tell their children that this is how they were formed, and they'd love to be able to introduce their surrogate to their child and tell them about that. And it's a big trust, it's a big process to go through with someone. And so another rule that the government are imposing is that you only have 2 surrogacy journeys. And so if you've had a child through surrogacy and want to get into another contractual relationship with that surrogate, and they have either had a child for somebody else or have had a miscarriage, which counts as a surrogacy journey, you will not be able to have a sibling with them. So it's crazy from that kind of story point of view as well. But so those concerns have been addressed in the legislation. There are multiple restrictions and limits and safeguards put in place to ensure that there is no child trafficking and there is no exploitation, commercial exploitation, I suppose, of surrogates and women acting as surrogates. We don't that can't happen at all. And so any amount of that is intolerable. And we welcome all the regulation that's in place to stop that happening. But we don't feel that compensating a surrogate for her time is necessary in the context of the framework, which already has so many protections. As I said, you've got this surrogacy agency. Everybody is legally advised. Everybody is has psychological kind of counselling in relation to this. So everybody knows what they're entering into. And with those safeguards, we don't feel that not paying the surrogate is going to reduce that risk of child trafficking any further. It's already provided for, and we are fully confident that the system will stop any risk of that happening. And so that we don't also need to ask the surrogate to do it altruistically, which from a domestic point of view is unrealistic, and certainly from an international point of view is unrealistic.
How compliant would that approach be with European law? Because what we've seen, excuse me, particularly in relation to, say, waiting lists for hospitals, the HSE has been quite happy, well, maybe not happy, but they have been willing to send people to European hospitals to reduce waiting lists. Why does that not apply in the context of either surrogacy or assisted reproduction? Because, as I say, the friends who I spoke to, they had children in Spain. If you had a natural birth in Spain, it's that would be recognised under European law, but for some reason or other, if you have an assisted reproduction in Spain, it falls foul of Irish thinking. What's your thoughts on that, Maeve? Mm-hmm.
No, there's certainly, a real want and a need to medicalise things here, both in terms of same-sex female couples having children, which, as I pointed out, does not need to be medicalised. Yes, there are consents that need to be signed, but that does not need to be done through a fertility clinic. But also, there's a trust issue there, as you say, that the Irish government seems to be unwilling to accept that fertility clinics and surrogacy agencies abroad are regulated in their own countries, and they have their own regulations to comply with, and we can trust that they are therefore safe and places to go to medical places to engage with. And there definitely is going to be an issue once, as I am confident that we are going to get international surrogacy in this country. The new promise is the end of the year to see legislation on this, and I'm considering all the delays, I feel like that has to happen at this stage. There will certainly be more uproar, not that it hasn't been already, but there'll be more uproar if it doesn't. But once that comes in, that also doesn't make sense then for why clinics outside of Ireland would not be allowed for IVF and other forms of donor-assisted human reproduction. So we do need to kind of realise what impacts our changes in law in one area are having in another. But in terms of European law, it is important to point out that Ireland would be one of the first countries to take steps to regulate international surrogacy. That's not a reason not to do it. That's a reason to, front up to this challenge, make sure we're doing it properly, be a trailblazer, and allow other countries to copy us for once, rather than always, piggybacking on what other countries are doing.
Yeah.
But what has come out of the European courts is that children deserve rights, and children deserve parental links to their parents, and that a framework has to be in place for route to parentage for those children. So that is clear.
And we want to make it clear to listeners and everybody else, while we're talking about the context of same-sex couples, this applies right across this is not gender specific. This is not, shall we say, legally specific. This applies to people right across the board, men, women, women. So this isn't just if you like, a drum you're beating for the LGBT+ community.
No, absolutely. Surrogacy affects everyone and could affect anyone. That's why we really need our allies in this space, because it's not just about couples that already have gone through surrogacy. You don't know who in your life is going to need to avail of surrogacy. And so really, this is an issue that everybody should care about. they should care better for the children that are already in existence, but also for all the future children that are going to be born through surrogacy. People are going to continue to do this, whether it's regulated or not. So it's a reality of Irish life, and we do need to put the correct framework in place for it. But yes, it's an issue that can affect anybody, as I said. And I suppose we just need to be careful that the legislation that's put in place doesn't disproportionately affect LGBT plus people kind of unintentionally. We need to make sure, because there's obviously more countries that are available, such as Ukraine, to opposite sex couples that LGBT couples are excluded from. So we just need to be sure that when we're putting in the regulation, that it's fair for everybody.
Last but by no means least, Maeve, and I want to talk about legal protections. We'll assume that what you're looking for is legally brought in. But what we've seen recently, particularly in Italy, is that rights can be taken away at the stroke of a pen. And I gather that in Italy, the Meloni government wants to basically, shall we say, negate those rights that same-sex couples have had, or people who've had assisted reproductions. What's your understanding of that, so we can share and alert the dangers to our listeners?
It is actually quite terrifying what's happening. So already there have been women taken off the birth certificate of their children. As I've said, this has been a long fight and a long campaign in Ireland. And in 2020, we finally got a situation where 2 women could be on the birth certificate. As I said, have a birth certificate where my name, along with my wife's, is on the birth certificates for our children. And I cannot imagine that being taken away, that my name being crossed off those documents and me returning to a state where I have no legal relationship with my child. It has so many impacts in terms of consent for medical treatment, consent for education. If my wife died, the children could go to her family. That's what's happening in Italy. That's the fear that women are currently faced with in Italy, as their names, as they were told would happen, and is now happening in, I think it's 27 birth certificates have now been changed because of this government policy. And that it could happen anywhere. And that's why we need to stand up, like we do in the LGBT community, for all of our members of our community. We also need to stand up for the LGBT rights of LGBT plus people in other countries. And that's really important to be aware of this issue and, spread that message of what's happening.
Yeah, well, and I don't want to be too alarmist about that, but for those of us who were around in the 80s and HIV was rampant, we saw that situation where couples, one of the partners was denied access to a dying partner by the family who may not have approved of the relationship. And that's the worst case scenario, but we would hope to at least put some humanity into all of this rather than just have dry law. But Maeve DeLargy, we would hope that we'll be able to, the next time we talk to you, it'll be on a much more positive note, that it'll be welcoming the legislation being passed and welcoming your family being the same and equal law as everybody else's. So Maeve, and say hello to your wife for us as well, and the children, and I am sure they are so lucky to have such fabulous parents. So Maeve, thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Mick. Thank you.
Couldn't see the haunted forest for the trees regarding us.